Welcome to Lit with Lloyd. I am your host, Lloyd Russell, and a shout out to KCAT for hosting our program. Uh, our guest today is a longtime attorney. He is a valued member of the Producers Network here at KCAT, and he is a novelist. So we are happy to welcome, and it's great to have you here, Alan.
It's great to be here, Lloyd. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Uh, let's go backwards a bit before we go forward.
Okay.
And before we start, I would like to acknowledge our audience, and hopefully they'll let us know that they're here. Audience? Okay, that's enough. How long have you been an attorney, and are you still practicing?
I practiced for 48 years, from 1969 through 2017. And I do not practice any longer. I still do some consulting, and I do a little teaching about the collaborative process, but I have not practiced since 2017.
And what was your specialty, if you had one?
Well, I did. After practicing general practice for a number of years, I became a certified family law specialist in 1980.
Okay. And also, just somewhat coincidentally, I would say, we both went to the same law school. I was just a couple of years behind you, but I did not go into law. So,
Well, that's the beautiful thing about going to law school. They don't make you become a lawyer.
oh, it was obviously a good stepping stone for you. For me, not so much. All right, let's get into the novel. You wrote your first novel just a couple of years ago, correct?
Yes, it was published in 2021.
What got you thinking that you wanted to write a novel, and when did you actually start writing it?
Well, some folks think that along the way of a career, maybe they came across some interesting stories and things like that. And I knew that if I ever wrote a memoir, it would probably be read by 2 or 3 people, and that would be it. But that I could probably make a novel with enough stories that were not only mine, but stories of from other lawyers that, if you've ever been in a bar with a couple of lawyers, you're going to get some stories. And some of those were memorable, and blending that all together made it more fun. Aside from which, if you do a memoir, it has to be factual and accurate. And with a novel, there's no such restriction.
When did you get the idea that you were going to write a novel? How did that even come into your head?
Well, in 48 years of practicing law, you do a lot of writing. And while it's all expository, factual stuff, at some point, regardless of what some people may have said about my writing, the idea of writing fiction, it was fun. I decided I was going to do that in retirement, so to speak.
So you specifically decided to wait until you had pretty much finished your active practice.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Because we all know so many attorneys that became big-time authors young. I mean, fairly young, or they were in the middle of their careers, but they didn't wait till retirement.
Well, we see Sheldon, of course.
Yes.
But I knew that I wasn't going to be an F. Lee Bailey or Louis Nizer and have that kind of following that whatever I did, I could toss out and lots of people would read. That wasn't part of the makeup of my career. And anyway, that's kind of how the timing worked out.
When did you decide that you were going to write a novel in retirement?
when I actually decided to close the practice, I'd been thinking about doing something that would take some highlights from my career. And as I say, I decided that a novel was going to be probably better received than a memoir.
Yes, well, we don't know because the memoir was never written, but
That's true.
But how has the novel been received?
The few people who have read it, no, I've had some decent readership. People seem to have enjoyed it. They take it as somewhat of a learning experience and an interesting story. But many people have actually thought it was a memoir. And it's kind of fun because people will come up to me and say, "Gee, Alan, I didn't know you had a partner like that," or "I didn't know this or that or the other," and say, "Well, that's because I never did." I mean, that's the beauty of it. And apparently it was believable.
Well, that leads me to a question I was going to ask a little bit down the road. Are any of the characters biographical or autobiographical?
Some of the I can at best say semi. Now the victim in the case was based, and I'd say that was 80% on a case that I actually had.
Ah, okay.
So the injuries and the legal procedures were largely, that's the skeleton of the book. Many of the twists and turns did not happen exactly that way, and certainly the conclusions were way different. But when you I'm going to go back for a little bit, if I may.
Absolutely.
When I was new to the business, I had a mentor whose name also was Lloyd.
Impossible.
Impossible. And he had told me that one of the things you have to do if you're going to practice law is watch the television shows that highlight the law, all the courtroom stuff, because that's what's going to inform your clients, the people that are going to come into your office, that are going to talk to you, are going to believe that that's what it's about.
Interesting.
So you have to watch that so you can disabuse them of that notion. And as my wife would tell you, watching a law show with me was bruising, because you say, that's not right. That's not how it happens. And, you know, everywhere from the infamous L.A. law to whatever's going on now, I wanted to do something that was going to say, no, this is how it really happens. This is how the sausage is made. And what you see there is fiction and entertainment. Take it for that, or it's going to make you crazy.
So Night Court is not a good example of what happens in court.
I never appeared in Night Court, so I can't really speak to that. But the day courts...
Not so much.
Not so much.
All right. Well, in 48 years of practice, you obviously had many, many cases. How did you decide that you were going to do this particular case for the book?
Fair enough. The stuff that sticks in your mind over the years, I did a lot of domestic violence cases that make you think, and they stay with you, kind of like PTSD. And that's an area that I don't think gets the right kind of treatment on television or in the books. They either do it, like they say, off camera, or they do it in a way that's highlighted, like the movie The Burning Bed. There are different ways that it's treated. And I wanted to have something that would give the victim of domestic violence a way to look at the process to see the things that they might actually have to go through in the legal process to come out the other end. And of course, we wanted to have a happy ending for them, so that it wasn't all tears the whole time.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. The cover, is pretty graphic. How did you get your model for the cover?
Well, the model in the cover was actually my granddaughter, who reluctantly agreed to pose. It's not her favorite thing to do. And the graphic artist that put it all together is in the audience today. So that's how we got that. And a doctor that did some consulting on the book also managed to get me a halo device to actually put on my granddaughter, and I promised not to put the screws into her scalp, and so she was okay with it, and it came out okay.
Well, the combination of the device and how she's got her kind of eyes turned, it's very effective.
Some people have said frightening.
Yeah.
And to some people it's been kind of a turnoff, but I think it highlights the mixed feelings that come from doing this kind of work.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay, so you get up one morning and you say, okay, today I'm going to start writing. Did you set a schedule? Did you plot it all out? Did you pants through it? How did you actually get started? And did you set some requirements for yourself in terms of hours per day, that sort of thing?
I know most of the people that appear on your show have a real program where they do that. They say, "Oh, I'm going to write from 9 to 2 every day," or something like that. And I did not have that particular discipline. I would start writing at any time and write until I came to a spot that I didn't know what I wanted to do next, and maybe take a break, sometimes a day, sometimes a week, sometimes a month, while I sorted through how I was going to deal with the next thing. I had an idea as to where I was going. I did not put up a big board with all of the different things on it that you see authors do, and I did not have a publisher and an editor beating me with a whip to make sure I got everything done on time. Anyhow, so it actually took me the better part of 3.5 years.
Oh, wow.
To get that done.
So you set no time limit at all. You were just going to finish it when you finished it.
Well, that's pretty much it. I certainly wanted to get it done as quickly as I could think it through.
Yeah.
Because, as I said, it was actually published in 2021. I was 79 at the time, and you don't want to press your luck.
Well, you did good.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so it took you 3.5 years. We've talked about this a little bit, off camera. But did you try to get an agent? Did you try to contact publishing houses, or did you just want to self-publish?
Well, a friend of yours, Ann Bridges,
yeah,
is somebody that I met at a Brandeis book event. And in chatting with her at one point, I said, I've been working on this, and she says, well, I love helping young authors, new authors. I was no longer young at the time. And so we talked about it, and she talked about the process of getting an agent and one thing or another, and getting to a publishing house. And given the time constraints, where it might take an extra 2 years to get that squared away, I said, I don't want this published posthumously, and I will go ahead and self-publish. So she walked me through that process, and there we go.
Yeah, she definitely knows what she's doing. What kind of help did you get in terms of, did you have readers that helped you? Did you have a copy editor, proofreader to go through it? How did that work for you?
Well, my wife has always been my first reader. And even when I was doing legal briefs, I would have her read it, a brief, because if she understood it, I knew a judge would. That was kind of my. Sorry about that. That was kind of my standard. If I couldn't write it so that she could follow it, then I hadn't done the job. And because judges don't have as much time as you'd like to think they're going to take with your written work, and they're going to skim through it. So you have to make your points quickly, and while they may understand larger words, if you can avoid them, you avoid them. So she would read it, and then I'd send it out to a friend or two to maybe follow up on that and do some fine tuning. Then turn it over to Anne, and she'll come up with some plot points or inconsistencies, and do the final editing for me.
Okay, good. That's great. Okay, well, we are going to take a quick break for some kind of commercial thing. I don't really know what it is. And then we will be back. So,
Okay.
Be back in a few minutes.
Thank you to the City of Montecirino for their continued support of KCAT Public Media. The City of Montecirino has enabled KCAT to inspire, educate, entertain, and inform our community through the magic of television and digital media for over 38 years. Thank you.
And we are back with Alan Nobler. And Alan, before we get a few more questions answered, how about if we acknowledge the audience?
Again?
Audience? If you're enjoying it, great. If not, pretend. All right, so you've got the book done. Let's talk about a few other kinds of things.
Okay.
I've always wondered this about authors, and I've certainly asked a number of authors. How did you come up with the characters' names?
Some of them are tributes to people. Some of them are just, what would be a good name for this character or that character, or I'm tired of John and Jim and whatever. It's I don't know. You pull them out of the air and just see if it fits, and if it doesn't, you throw out another one.
And if it doesn't fit, it's just you just know it's not right.
That's exactly it. If it doesn't feel right as you read it, then I'll come up with something else, and somebody else may say that was a terrible name, but okay.
Well, it's your call.
It's my call. I was out on a bike ride with a friend the other day, and we're riding along, and I came up with a name. Now I have to find a character for it in the next book, but I've got a name, and I'm going to use it somewhere.
Yeah, isn't that an old John Denver song? Anyway,
no, yeah,
Gordon Lightfoot, somebody.
Gordon Lightfoot, Jim Croce.
Jim Croce is the right one. Yes, thank you. Okay. Do you have all your characters and names, but at least the characters. Do you have them all ready before you start writing?
No.
That's cool.
No, because as you start working through a plot and the story, you say you need somebody else to tell this part of the story, or somebody else to flesh out that concept. And when you do that, sometimes you have a name that you say, I've got to use somewhere, but you try and come up with something that's going to be different. And at least I did.
Okay, so you really didn't plot the whole thing out. You did have characters that you developed along the way.
Yes.
Okay, a typical pantser, as I believe they call it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Do you have influences that helped you write? Authors that you've read that I know you mentioned Ann Bridges, and she's an author as well as a coach. But were there certain authors that kind of helped guide you?
Most of the authors that I've read that I really like just intimidate the hell out of me. That you can look at a Steinbeck novel and the things that he's put in and the characters that he's developed, and it's just awesome as to how he's done. Even Grisham or Thoreau or the legal writers, Balducci, Sheldon, Siegel, all of those authors have something that is really terrific, and I would aspire to be even spoken in the same sentences as those names.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk for a minute about what's coming up next. Have you started another novel?
I have, and as I think I've told you, I've got a first draft, and I'm waiting for some feedback on that before it goes into rewrites, which it desperately needs. and that when I get some semblance of completion or almost completion, we'll be sending it out to some first readers.
Great. How many drafts did you have for the first novel?
The first novel, I started probably 3 times before I got something that I was able to follow through with.
Wow.
I had characters that took me in the wrong direction, things that just didn't work at all, and written myself into corners that I couldn't get out of conveniently. So, yeah, I didn't complete it. I didn't get a first complete draft. This time I've got a complete draft before we start with the rewrites. But I tossed out a couple on the first one.
I don't think I've ever talked to an author who was satisfied with the results of the first draft. But how does it feel to do it this way as opposed to the first book? You said you didn't have a complete first draft. Did you decide that you were going to have a first draft on the second one?
No, I didn't. But there are different purposes with the books. The first one, as I say, I was writing for what I thought would be an audience of not just attorneys, but victims and general readers. The second one, and I was hoping to have an influence that might help with legislation that I'd wanted to see put together. And the second one has no such ulterior motive. I want this to be also educational, entertaining, and again, I'm hoping a few attorneys will read it, but I'd like the general public to get into this as well.
Will it have the same general concept of a victim in a courtroom?
We will have a victim. There will be a criminal proceeding, and that will hopefully be the last we see of a courtroom.
Is this a standalone, or are there any characters that were in the first book?
I promise you'll recognize some characters.
Okay.
I mean, that was one of the things that Ann Bridges told me about selling the book, is that when you have two, you sell better than only one. So,
well, Sheldon Siegel, I don't know if everybody knows who that is, but of course, what Sheldon's written, I think now 12 or 13 books in a series.
He's got, I think, is 17 or 18 now.
Yeah, and they're with the same characters. Of course, it's a different story each time, obviously.
But somebody always dies.
Yes, these are legal murder mysteries, I think they're called.
And which brings up another point, of course, is that in my books nobody dies; they just get really hurt.
Yeah.
And and that seems to be a turnoff for some people that would say, "Oh, I can't read about domestic violence. Oh my goodness, my faint heart." But yet, you take a murder mystery where somebody is dismembered and the pieces are mailed around, and I'll read that. So I don't know. I don't understand that, and that's still I'm not comfortable with that kind of a mystery for my work.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about promotions. So, you self-published. What did you do to promote the book, and are you continuing to try to promote the book?
I'm continuing to try and promote it through things like what we're doing here. I do not do social media because all the people I know that are on social media, that's a second career in and of itself. And
Fair enough.
I've never signed up for Facebook. I've asked friends who do to say something about the book. LinkedIn is certainly not a place that is going to be a great promoter of this, although I will use that to let people know that this podcast exists and ask them to share. So my promotion has been limited, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a couple of speaking engagements, but that's pretty much it.
Okay, so you're relying on word of mouth to a certain extent.
I am.
Okay.
My publisher has not booked me on a tour.
But having said that, have you ever thought to contact bookstores directly to appear?
I have, and I've had books in at the Prune Yard and Barnes and Noble, and without doing a in-store promotion, they have not been flying off the shelves. So
yeah.
So I haven't followed through on all of that. I did not want promoting the book to be a second career.
Okay. All right. Do you think, though, that after you get the second one published, that you might try to see if bookstores would be willing to have you appear?
I will probably go back through that again. And I know at the Prune Yard, they said, sure, we'll be happy to allow you to host an event here and promote your book here, but we want you to bring in all of the refreshments, bring in the people, and at most we'll put up a flyer announcing that you're going to do that. So they don't do anything specifically to help you promote the book.
Yeah. Okay. So you're not going to count on it, but you might explore it again.
I will certainly be happy to talk to them and see if they have any greater interest.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, you're obviously pretty comfortable with how it's being promoted currently, to the point where you're not prepared to make other changes at this moment.
I would.
How was that?
I'm not. I don't have, as you say, a publicist or a publisher with a publicist.
Yeah.
And when I go to conventions, for instance, in the collaborative organization, I will do I speak at programs, and I bring along some books, and I will talk to people there, and some of them have graciously purchased them and enjoyed them, and others say once again, "Oh my God, domestic violence! Please, no, take it away."
Yeah.
So
Okay. All right. Well, the last question I have for you, which is extremely important, is what is among your favorite books and movies?
I know you warned me that this
I
was
did.
coming.
I did.
And I suppose if there's a movie that you've watched multiple times, then that, and there's one that has come to mind recently because of working with the Producers Network, where it's the baseball movie Bull Durham.
Yeah.
Which is a funny, terrific movie, and the book about the production of that movie, getting the putting together the screenplay and getting it filmed, is something that I think everybody in the Producers Network needs to read.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to suggest that to them. Otherwise, if you're, I really don't have other books that come to mind, and by that I would think of things that you've reread more than once. There's a lot of books I've reread because I didn't remember having read them in the first place, but that could well be a function of the age as well.
I can honestly say that I can relate to that. Fortunately, I write down, since I have a book blog, I write down the books that I've read. Otherwise, I would be in the same boat. Okay, well, I think that'll do it for us. I'm going to acknowledge the audience one more time. Audience, thank you all for being here. We really appreciate that. And I'm going to close the book on today's podcast. I want to thank KCAT again for hosting us. I want to thank Alan for being here. It was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it myself.
Good. And if you want to see any of the other podcasts, you can go on kcat.org, or you can go on YouTube and just look up Lit with Lloyd. So that'll do it for us, and we'll see you next time.
You just heard Lit with Lloyd here on KCAT Radio. Explore all our KCAT original programming at kcat.org/radio.